Hey there, welcome to the Writer at Work podcast. We are doing a mini episode today, and our episode is going to be focused on skin colors. And we have a challenge where we are going to do it for 5 minutes. So I'm Miss Catherine MH, and right over here is Kit Boyer. All right, set our timer. Let's do this.
5 minutes.
All right, so we have 4 tips for you today. Tip number 1. Why should you not use food to describe skin color? A few reasons. 1, humans aren't tasty treats. All right, we're not. Don't mention it. 2, a lot of the food coloring that we use has a lot of racist undertones to it. So you don't hear too many Caucasians getting described as a lot of food colors. And even when you do, milky and peachy seem to be very kind words to be using. And while caramel and mocha and chocolate seem to be really cool ways to describe people like they're tasty treats, because they're not tasty treats, they're humans, there's a lot of undertone for racism because those foods were harvested a lot of the times by slaves, and they were used and sold over through the slave trade route. And so they were called the chocolate people because they were making and producing the chocolate. And it's just, you don't want to bring up all that kind of stuff in it.
Also, it's boring and common. And do you want to be a boring writer or do you want to be awesome?
Mm-hmm.
Be awesome. Choose awesomeness. Mm-hmm. Oh, the next tip.
Yes.
Vague versus specific descriptions. Kate has specific opinions on this, and mine are more vague.
Indeed. So for me, I believe that you should be describing characters completely. Do it because you don't want your reader to get really confused later on when you actually mention something. So you mention their skin is black instead of it just being darker. So if you're sitting there and be like, his darker skin. Okay, cool. But then later, if you're like, his black skin, whoa, maybe I was picturing a darker skin tone than my own, and now suddenly it's completely different and they're black. It's a little jarring to me. And that's why I think that you should always be specific when you are doing description of skin tone. However, Kit's idea is a little different from mine. So
yes. So I think vague descriptions are best when it comes to characters, like physical characteristics just in general. I think it gives more room for reader imagination, lets people insert their own desires and ideas. For example, if you said that their skin tone was darker, then the reader can imagine that that skin tone is darker than their own skin tone, not darker than like white or something. And if you are consistent and you're not like surprising the reader at one point by saying like, and he was also black, and up until now you didn't mention anything about it. If you're consistent with your vagueness, it's going to be fine, I think. And I don't want anybody to tell me. I don't even know what characters look like. I just have like a kind of like a vague idea in my head, and I don't care about all of the little details of them unless they're important to their development or something.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that leaves us over with tip number 3. Cool versus warm. So there is a difference between what is considered cool and what is considered warm. So cool colors tend to be pinks and blues. Warm tends to be the yellows, reds, and oranges. If I am in front of a white background, my skin tone will suddenly start becoming very yellowy and orange. It's weird. It's obnoxious. I can't take a picture with a white background. So when you're describing that, it's cool because you can see the difference in skin tones on people. You could be describing the same ethnicity of a group of people, and they can still have warm or cool undertones. And it just adds to the extra detail that I like in my story. And you can add more details onto those words instead of having it vague. Not pointing at anybody.
Yeah. All right. So my last thing on that, I think, jewel skin tone. I don't know, like paler. I got paler skin and it's like cooler toned, but you can use those words like cooler or warmer or adjectives that are similar to those to add detail to your color words, just like Kate's saying. And then our final tip, number 4, is to, when you're figuring out skin tones and you're trying to describe colors and things like that, there's a website we have down in the description that shows skin colors and describes them and gives you alternate words to use that aren't just like food, you know? And also look up skin tone color palettes. You can Google that, you know, skin tone color palettes, skin tone palettes for X, Y, or Z. And that's a great resource. So don't mind my kids. We did it.